My name is Amanda Baird, and this is my final summary for Physics 101. I'm going to explain to you why I deserve to receive an A in the class, as well as go over each of the projects and things that we studied throughout the semester. I deserve to get an A in this class because I completed 100% of the daily assignments. I also completed 100% of the discussions, which included an initial response, as well as 8 additional posts to everyone else's responses. I completed 100% of our NEAT resource subjects, which included a 50-word abstract for each of them. I looked at everybody else's NEAT resource postings, and I included my favorite 3 in my weekly summaries every week. My weeks 1 through 16 weekly summaries were completed in full, and each of them included what we did for the week, what we learned for the week, and then I related what we learned with what I already knew and how I can use it outside of class in my real life. Not only did I do that, but I also included how much time was spent in the class and outside. I completed my end of the semester summary, which was a 12 to 15 minute video, and you're now watching that one. I also completed a cultural science paper, which was from my visit to the Lowell Observatory. It included a 2-page reaction paper as well as some additional research and information on the Lowell Observatory. And last but not least, I completed my controversial debate paper, which was 2,000 words on the pros and cons of whether or not the Egyptian pyramids were built using advanced technology. So I'm going to start off by going over the discussions that I thought were the coolest throughout the semester. We started off talking about science, then we started talking about technology and education and the value of higher education. We went into the digital world and talked about how the digital realm is now completely intertwined with reality. And then we wrapped up our discussions for the semester talking about the video, The Elegant Universe, which really dives into the string theory and how it came along and how it is advancing. So my top discussions were starting with the 4D humanity discussion, which talks about separating the domains of art, science, politics, and religion, and talks about how each one of these domains was a human construct that was brought up by basically trying to understand and explain different domains and things that went on within them. So basically the discussion goes on to say that we should keep each of these domains different, and there should be no reason that things like religion and science should conflict because they really don't have much to do with each other. So this was a new way of looking at things in that manner for me, and it was pretty interesting. So I really feel like that is one of my favorites. My second favorite was the discussion that was called Engage or Enrage Me. And this really hit home to me because I'm also a student that if I don't get engaged and I'm not feeling that I'm getting something out of what I'm learning, I tend to check out. And I also have an 11-year-old son who is guilty of doing the same thing. So this went about how we need to restructure our education system and find a way to get these children that have basically checked out and get them to come back in and become engaged within the school, whether or not it be through technology, gaming, or just changing the curriculum in order to get them a little bit more interested in what's going on there. Another one of my favorite discussions was the value of higher education. This really stood out to me because a lot of us are here in college trying to get that degree, to get where we need to go in life, and the idea that maybe employers and potential jobs out there aren't requiring these degrees anymore and that they maybe would prefer to train you on their own is really kind of scary and crazy to me because so many of us are really here to just get there. So when I started learning about that, it was kind of making me think about a lot of things, and hopefully we're just all on the right track to get where we need to go. So now I'm going to go over our NEAT resources. Once or twice a week, we would be required to go out and do some investigating on either a multimedia platform or a topic that may be of interest to us in our physics classroom. And we would find something interesting on it and post an original post that nobody else had posted about. And my favorites of that were the Hacker Spaces, which was a place where they had 3D printers and stuff for engineering things and robotics, all available to the public. So you could either go and take a class on it, or you could kind of just show up one night out of the week and create your own stuff and use their printers and things like that. I thought that was really cool because in some cases maybe people wouldn't have access to these types of things otherwise. And to me, opening the doors to the public is a really cool idea. And I think it's really awesome, and I would like to check some out in my own time. I also really liked the idea of the MOOCs, which were the massive online courses. And they really stood out to me because sometimes there are things that you would like to learn about, but maybe you don't want to go to school on a Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Friday type thing. And in these MOOCs, you can go online and you can study all kinds of different material and take classes and get certifications on your own time and at your own pace. And I think that that's really cool because you can attend a class that's maybe held out of Harvard University or somewhere else. And some of them are free, some of them are low cost. And I just really like the idea that you can attend them online on your own couch and on your own time schedule. And to me, that's really cool. So the final one that I really liked out of our NEAT resource studies was self-replication. Now, self-replication has to do with 3D printers being able to replicate themselves for a fraction of the cost of what a normal 3D printer would be. I think that's also really cool because, like I said, there's a lot of times where maybe some people wouldn't have access to these types of things, and 3D printers are really expensive. So the idea that you can get one and specify it to something that you would be able to create at home with minimal things like screws and stuff, and that another 3D printer can make it for you, I think that that's really cool. And I would actually like to have one of these. So I'm going to have to definitely look into that too when I get a little bit of extra cash. As far as our platforms go for doing our weekly summaries, my favorite was Pinterest. Before we started these, I really had no interest in Pinterest, no pun intended. A lot of my friends used it and I just really didn't see the point, to be honest. It just seemed kind of dumb. But once I was required to keep record of what we were doing all week long and create postings about it, it turned out to be pretty cool because I could take pictures all week long of what we were doing within the classroom, and I downloaded the app to my phone, and then at the end of the week I could upload the app or upload the photos to the app and just kind of make a short summary about what was going on, what we learned, what we were doing. And to me, it became very convenient. And so once we got to choose our own platforms, I actually used it several times. And the other one that I used was Evernote, and I think that I will actually continue using that in the future as a good note-keeping platform because it's really easy to use and it has good accessibility. So now I'm going to get to the fun stuff, and here's where all of my pictures and all of my cool things that I took during the semester are going to kind of come into play. So this is going to talk about all of the topics and the projects that we did throughout the semester. So we kind of started off the semester looking into 3D printing, and to me that was really cool because I had never seen a 3D printer in person before, even though apparently they have them at the Science Center. I guess I kind of just missed that. But we got to use a 3D program and make our own game pieces with our initials on it, and then submit them into the program, and then our professor took them from the program and transferred them over to our 3D printer, and each of us got to walk away with our own really cool game piece. This was my fail. Apparently it doesn't like to make overhangs, and mine had an overhang, and so I kind of ended up tipping sideways, and all of the filament ended up becoming this nice big blob, and sorry to whoever's piece I landed on. But then I have this one, which was my second try, and it had a lot more of a streamlined shape going on to it. It ended up coming out perfectly. It's pretty cool. And so I keep it up on my shelf over there with all the other cool stuff that I've made in school. And to me, I just think it's awesome, and I'm going to probably hold on to it for a long time. After we did the 3D printing, we jumped into energy. And our topic of energy was extremely long. We did all kinds of stuff. We talked about the transfer and the preservation and the loss of energy during the exchange between kinetic, gravitational, spring, and stored or thermal energy. And I'm going to go ahead and show you a clip now of my journal and some of the energy stuff that I had written in there. After that, we went into skate park analysis, and that taught us how to do energy bar charts and to determine where our energy is during what types of motion and stuff like that. So I thought that was a really cool and helpful tool for us to be able to learn where exactly our energy is, where, and why. So here's a clip of what the energy skate park analysis looked like. After we kind of messed around with the energy bar charts, we started learning how to actually calculate energy mathematically. And we were given some really cool equations like gravitational energy equals mgh, and then we have kinetic energy equals 1/2 mv squared. And we're kind of able to go from there and use these calculations in order to determine lots of things like how do we get to a velocity to make a target land somewhere that we need it to, and at what height do we need to be at to actually reach that velocity. And so that came in really handy while we were doing our Nerf gun fun. And then we did something where we had a ball rolling down a Hot Wheels ramp, and we had to have it reach a target on the floor at a specific distance away from the table. We also used vector diagrams in order to help us calculate these other things that I just went over. And the vector diagrams were really cool, and they actually also came in very handy while we were doing our project called Soak the Teach. In this project, we had a water balloon launcher, and we had to determine a mathematical equation that would help us relate velocity with distance. And pretty much we were trying to determine how to get our water balloon to hit our instructor out in the field by holding the water balloon launcher at a 45-degree angle at a certain distance away from him and trying to get him to get soaked by the balloon. So here's a couple of really cool fun photos from that, and even though we weren't able to soak our teacher, a lot of us really enjoyed it. After we had completed our Soak the Teach project, we jumped right into force, and we learned about free body diagrams and force diagrams. Here's a couple of photos from my journal that show you what I'm talking about on each of those. We learned how to determine how the forces act upon each other, and we also went into depth on Newton's laws, which were the laws of inertia, the laws of acceleration, and the law of force. So we learned how each of these laws are responsible for helping us determine where exactly a force is at and how to determine what kind of force is being acted upon which one of the objects. And we got to draw some really cool, funny little pictures. So here's a couple of photos of that also. After our studies on force, we jumped right into electromagnetic radiation. This has to do with extremely low frequencies, microwaves, infrared, visible spectrum, ultraviolet, X-rays, and gamma rays. We got to learn how to do calculations regarding wavelength and frequency and using the speed of light. So here's a photo of some of that stuff. And within our electromagnetic spectrum studies, we did a project where we proved the speed of light by using a chocolate bar in a microwave, determining the wavelength, and then proving the speed of light afterward. We also went into light and reflection, and we determined how different colors were actually created within the spectrum of our visible light, how some of them are absorbed and how some of them are reflected. We also got to make this really cool kaleidoscope type thing, which if you look inside of it, it's a little bit cooler. Okay, sorry, that was the mom coming out of me. After we did that, we were kind of, we took our studies on color and light a little bit further. We watched a video about Tim's Vermeer and how he used the reflection of a painting or a room and in this little box, the camera obscura, and he used these things all to combine to create a really lifelike picture. And so after we watched the movie, we tried to replicate this process. And so what we did is we took an upside down flipped photo of something that we really wanted to replicate. And we used the mirror setup that you're going to see in just a moment. And we tried to do our best, which I thought I did pretty good, to replicate it. So even though it's not identical, when you can see the photos that I'm about to show you, you can see the entire process. It was pretty complex, but if you did it and you were very persistent, you're able to come up with some pretty cool stuff. So here's some photos of that. While we were working on our Vermeers, we were also taking time out of our day to create an instructional video. Now, the group that I'm in chose to do Doppler sonography for our instructional video, and each of us chose a different part of the topic to present in a video. I chose to actually explain the Doppler effect, and I also took on the responsibility of creating and editing the entire video and splicing in some YouTube video clips and any of images that needed to be in there and editing the final draft. So that was pretty cool. Not only did I get to learn how to use Windows Movie Maker, but I also learned how to basically splice in all this other cool stuff that I've just been doing to show you. Included in the instructional video, we created a storyboard, and this was so that we could present our storyboard and our Vermeer, as well as our Soak the Teach in, posters at the STEAM Showcase, which was the science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics showcase that was held in the Plaza Gallery. And this was basically so we could show them what our instructional video was like without actually having our instructional video there. So learning how to storyboard was kind of difficult, and trying to get all four of us together to make that happen was a little bit hard, but at the end of the day, we got it. So this long video here explains all of the stuff that we did over the semester, and it covers basically why I feel like I deserve an A in the class, and it shows how much time and energy and efforts were required to be able to make it through the last several months, and I hope you enjoy. So like I said, Physics 101 was pretty awesome. It was extremely time consuming, and I learned a lot. If it wasn't for this class, there's a lot of things out there that I wouldn't have ever really got into. I wouldn't have researched. A ton of technology that I got to use and got familiar with a lot of platforms, and I feel like it was a really important class for me to take. Like David mentioned in the beginning of the class, I probably learned more in this class this semester than I have in a lot of my other classes combined. And even though I'm happy it's over, I'm happy it happened. Thank you.